Hello, and welcome to the Amazing Studios Production Podcast. My name is Peter Scheibner.
And I'm Cliff Baumgartner.
Cliff, this has been a marathon.
Yes, it's been a very long week.
Yes, there are some weeks that it's a lot of sprints, but this week we haven't stopped. It's been 5 a.m. in the morning on set till 9 o'clock at night leaving. What have we been working on?
Well, we should tell people first, this is kind of a special episode. We normally, due to our production schedules, have to record these in advance. Today, we are actually recording this on Friday. Today's date, I don't know the date. On Friday, the day this will be released. So we have
We're so far behind.
Yeah,
it's the 4th.
It is the 4th?
Yes.
Really? Well, time loses all meaning when you're in production. Mm-hmm. And we have spent all week shooting a really exciting project that I'm really happy with how it's coming together.
Yeah, it's been probably, a month and a half of pre-production on this one to get it ready.
It's been a long one.
And a lot of coordination. 12 locations, like 57 actors. We'll get into all that in a minute.
Yeah.
But this has been a crazy week, and we're excited to be able to share kind of some of our thoughts on the end of production as we start to move into post-production on this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, let's get started with what we've been watching. Cliff, I'll let you go first. What have you been watching?
Yes, I am going to do a callback to a previous episode of this podcast. A few weeks ago, we did our movie confessions. We revealed several different types of movies, or several movies in several categories, I should say. And one of those categories was classic, beloved films that we've never seen. And mine was The Incredibles.
Ooh.
Yes. And Brandon, who produces this show.
I still don't know how you went this long without it.
I know. I don't know either, honestly. But Brandon, who produces the show, is a huge fan of The Incredibles. So as soon as we got done with that podcast, he lent me the Blu-ray, and I watched it. And, I mean, I won't bear the lead on this one. It's fantastic. It's, as everyone who's ever seen it knows,
incredible.
I was so trying to avoid that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was there. I couldn't.
Low-hanging fruit. That was low-hanging fruit.
Yes, that was the low-hanging fruit. We'll explain that later on in this podcast, too, where that term came from.
But yeah, no, it's a fantastic film. So much fun. It has a lot of what I love in animation, of big characters, big scenarios, great comedy. I mean, it's a classic. And the thing about it, though, for me, is a lot of people say that it's their favorite superhero film. I think it's the best superhero film ever made. And no doubt, it's a superhero film. It has a very interesting take on the superhero, what at the time wasn't necessarily a film genre, but that is now very much a genre. But the thing about it, to me, I have a hard time stacking it up against what we now think of as a superhero film, because The Incredibles feels more like an homage, or maybe a slight parody of the action movie and superhero genres. It feels like its own thing, and I almost don't even think it's fair to compare it to what we now define as a superhero movie. It is its own thing, and what it did, and the way they used, the family element, and they brought a lot of unique things into the superhero world. It shines all on its own. So for me, I almost don't even count it among what I think of as superhero films, and I just thought it was an absolute blast. And I'm so happy I finally got to see it.
Well, the one thing you do have to count it as is a Pixar film, and everybody, I think, has their little internal rankings of Pixar films. Where does it fit in the litany of Pixar films for you?
That's hard, honestly. I mean,
what is your favorite Pixar film?
Well, see, that's the thing about Pixar films, is that because we tend to, you tend to grow up with certain Pixar films, you watch them over and over again, they become your favorites. I mean, things for me, it's probably still Toy Story, just because when that film came out, I was Andy's age, and I had a very similar kind of deep, passionate love for my toys, where my toys were my best friends, and they slept with me, and we played all day and everything else, and so Toy Story really connected with me, and has always been throughout my life. That franchise has been huge for me. So it's hard. I think I'd have to see The Incredibles more times to really give it a ranking, but my guess at this point is it's certainly top 5.
Okay. Yeah.
It's up there.
It's definitely the top 5 for me. All right.
It's a blast. What have you been watching?
This is a tough one. So I have a confession. I haven't been watching anything recently because, obviously, production.
Crazy week.
And when I am home, I have a 2-week-old. Wow, he's almost 3 weeks old.
Yeah.
I know. He's gained a whole pound from his last appointment. He's up to like 7'5" now.
And that's good, because he was a tiny baby.
He was a tiny baby. But no, and I have a 1.5-year-old, and all my 1.5-year-old wants to do is watch Frozen, which I know I'm not the only dad on earth who is watching Frozen every night. But apparently last week, my wife told me I sat bolt right up in bed. I was asleep, and I started singing one of the songs from Frozen. It's so in my head now.
What song? Please tell us what song.
Honestly, she wasn't sure what song it was because it was late and all that. But I'm pretty sure it was like The First Time in Forever, because I'm not kidding. That song it's in my head right now. I cannot get that song out of my head. Fortunately, it wasn't Let It Go. I'm not that dad. But the more obscure song is the one that's just completely stuck in there.
It's bad. You've seen a movie a bunch of times where you're starting to manifest lines from the movie as if you had a cocaine problem. Mm-hmm. Just sitting up and having it's like an addiction problem at this point. Sitting up in the middle of the night and screaming things.
Oddly enough, my wife said I was in key. And what's really hard for me is my wife is a beautiful singer. She's been in choirs, very talented. Always gets on me because when I sing, I'm out of key. And to this point, I almost do it intentionally now just to bug her. But she said the funniest thing was it sounded really good.
So maybe that's the thing. Maybe you need maybe you need to be put under in order to sing really well.
That's probably what it is.
Hypnotism. Maybe hypnotism. If you start hypnotizing yourself, you'll be an amazing singer.
That's probably right.
But here's the most important question. Do you, in fact, want to build a snowman?
I've always wanted to build a snowman. It's too adorable. Kaylee now can say basically all the characters' names. And so, if you say, who's that? She say, Essa, Anna, Olaf. It's just the cutest
thing.
And
I hear she is going as Anna for Halloween.
Yes. My sister Katie, who probably doesn't listen to this podcast. But
if you're out there, Katie.
If you're out there, hello, and thank you. She's making Kaylee and Anna outfit. She's making cousin Oliver. I almost said Brady was a cousin. Cousin Oliver, Kristoff, and we're dressing up Brady as Sven the reindeer. So that'll be the cutes walking around our neighborhood.
I can't wait to see that.
We'll get some good pictures. Maybe we'll put them on. We'll do a Halloween special. I know we've got some stuff at the studio here planned for Halloween. Maybe we'll include a little Kaylee's trick or treat.
Look forward to that, because that sounds like a high adorable levels.
Yes, pretty high adorable levels. Okay, so let's kind of dive into this week. And I want to kind of deconstruct what we've accomplished this week.
It's been a big one.
It has. Let's start at the beginning. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say for now. I'm going to say unnamed client.
Yep.
Who is in academia.
We will be doing a wrap up on this at some point.
Yes,
down the road.
And there'll be a behind the scenes video.
Yes.
So you'll be able to get a lot of the things we're talking about today. You'll be able to see in person. But until the project's released, we probably want to keep our client confidential. But in academia, wanted to do a promotional piece to promote the school when the president is on tours. And so we sat down with them. I guess it was back in June. Was it June or July?
I think it was June.
Yeah.
This has been a long one in the making.
And kind of had an initial conversation of, okay, what are you guys trying to accomplish? Kind of that fact-finding thing. It was myself, Brandon, and Dustin, the art director, who really took the lead on some of those meetings, and then you started coming in when we started getting into the story.
And also, it's important to note, because I think this did change the process a little bit. This video, even though it was the key video, was one of three. We had two other pieces, more simple pieces, that we had to produce, but they all kind of lived in the same family in terms of intent.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, and that's interesting for us, because sometimes videos will get split up on the back end. We actually were able to come into this and know we have three videos, three purposes, and define each one, and each one was a different level of production.
Right. The one we're going to talk about, though, is the third one, the one we just wrapped up production on. And
it's the big one.
It's the big one. This is the one that they needed to have the most polish. So right off the bat, we knew we needed a really dynamic script. We writer's roomed it. For anybody that doesn't know, a writer's room is where you have one head writer, and then you have a bunch of voices who are all going to start contributing. We take turns here at the studio being head writer. And it's really kind of based on what the project is. For this type of script, it's kind of my forte. So I took the head writer on this one. So I put together the first draft. And then we sat down as in the writer's room, and we started hashing through it. And you go through line by line by line, honestly, even by structure. Does it work? Until we got it to the point where we felt like we had a pretty good script. We sent it off to them, and we're told it wasn't a good script.
Yeah.
It just didn't accomplish what they were after. It was a good script, well written, and it was effective, but it was taking it in a direction they didn't want to go. So then we went back to the drawing board.
It was a different story.
Yeah, it was a different story than the one that they ultimately wanted to tell. So we went back to the drawing board. We continued to push it, and after several rounds of revisions, we did eventually come to what is the final script, and it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
The process of writing that script is very revealing for a lot of things. Cliff, let's talk a little bit about writing and what it kind of reveals in a team dynamic.
Yeah.
When you're all having to work together
Right.
to build a story.
Well, I think writing is an area where how someone writes and how they think about writing just reveals how they think and what's important to them. I know for you flowing prose is kind of a big, poetry is kind of a big passion of yours. I'm more in terms of simple, effective of storytelling. I'm more of a structure guy, more of a broad strokes.
You're
and
a
also,
very strong narrative writer.
well, in my private work, I'm much wackier than what we end up being able to do, here for in a lot of client cases. And Brandon, I feel like, who was also our other, he's the other really strong writer on the team, and he was in on those meetings. I feel like he's kind of a glue that brings some of those together because he can live in both worlds and he understands both sides of that, and he really helps to facilitate the conversation.
Well, and to be fair, both you and he have writing degrees.
Yes.
I mean, that's your degrees are in writing.
Right. And on this script, it was a little bit different. I think there was a lot. This wasn't a script where it was we're trying to sell a product or we're trying to make this one point. This was very broad. This was tell the story of the school, tell the story of the president, tell the story of our future in a minute and a half. So the line of narrative wasn't quite as clear on this one because there's just so much. There was so much to get in that this took a lot of back and forth and a lot of pushing and pulling from us and from the client and everything to end up with a script that honestly, until we printed off the script yesterday, 2 days ago now, I guess.
No, it was
that was yesterday.
That was yesterday.
It's been such a long week.
I know. Yesterday feels about 3 days.
Yeah, when we printed off the script yesterday, I had to look at it because I didn't remember where the lines had ended up. We've been over each line so much. Like we got into early editing yesterday, and I remember we printed off the script, and you and I are going line by line to remember what is the script at this point because there have been so many revisions. But in the end, that's how you get good work, and I think that's one of the strongest aspects of this project so far.
Yep. So once the script was approved, we moved into kind of pre-production, which is setting stuff up. We sat down. We did a full shot list.
Yep.
We did partial storyboards based on what we knew from locations.
And I would argue this is the most important part of this process.
Right. This project, the fact that we were able to get so many shoots in this week, so many different locations with different setups in every single location, different actors in every single location, would not have happened if we had not put in so much work on the front end.
Right.
We had a detailed shot list telling us this shot is taken with this camera at this lens with this motion here, and that was made possible partially because the school gave us great access.
We were very lucky in
our
regard.
location
We
scouting.
worked with some excellent people who were the right people, who knew who to call when they didn't know the answers to the questions, and were able to. I mean, I don't think we had any issues in terms of logistics because we had a lot of great help.
We did, and the pre-production on this really showed through that. So location scouting was incredibly important. We went to every single location. We actually went to probably 3 times as many locations we ended up using, so we could narrow it down and make some good decisions in our location choices.
Right.
So we went location scouting, then we took the locations with photos from locations. We built our shot lists, sent those back, got everything approved so that the people there could, because they didn't want to budget constraints. They didn't have the budget to hire actors.
Right.
57 actors. That's pretty. I mean, that's an impressive.
Most
number of
people don't
actors.
have the budget for that.
Right. So went back then to the school so that they could start rounding up people.
Yep.
There were certain requirements that we put on who to use, who not to use.
The good news is when you have a college, you have a lot of people who want to be in videos.
So they went back, they started rounding up actors, and then we started making decisions on, okay, as we're shooting this, what's some of the gear that we're going to need to make this possible. There were rentals. We rented everything from Borrow Lenses.
Who were amazing.
Absolutely fantastic. In praise of Borrow Lenses really quick, I just want to say, first off, we've rented from several different companies. We've never had an issue with Borrow Lenses with their stuff not showing up on time, not getting what we asked for. It's always been perfect in that respect. But
wonderful condition.
they went over and above this time,
Yeah.
in my opinion. We had an issue 2 days ago. We had a piece of equipment we were using. There was a cable that it used. It was the Red Rock Micro follow focus, which
remote follow.
fantastic piece of gear. Absolutely love it. Want to have it on my repertoire from now on.
Yeah.
But we had that in a rental from Borrow Lenses, and the D-tap cable went bad. These things happen. We called them up. It was, I don't know, probably noon.
A little bit before noon.
A little bit before noon,
Yeah.
we called them up and said, hey, this cable's gone bad. Is there anything you guys can do?
And I wish I remembered the name of the gentleman I spoke to because he was so fantastic. And he was not just fantastic from a customer service aspect. It felt like I had called back to somebody here at the studio who was a production guy who was like, oh, yeah, that's not going to work. We're going to fix that problem.
So they overnighted it to us, and it got here the next morning in time for our next shoot.
Yep.
So we ended up not missing a beat.
Yep. And it was invaluable.
Yeah, and it was absolutely something that we crucially had to have for the shoot that we were on. So Borrow Lenses, honestly, I'm a customer for life at this point.
Yeah.
Thanks to that fantastic customer service.
And also, they on this one, we were able, just because of their coupon policies, if you follow them, we were able to get quite a lot of discounts. They were cheaper than anybody else out there for the same gear because they work with the production community more, I feel like. So that was props to those guys. Kudos to those guys.
And by way of disclaimer, we are not being paid or promoted by Borrow Lenses. This is just our opinion, and our opinion of them is high.
Yeah.
We also rented a complete 6-lens set of Carl Zeiss CP2s.
Yes.
One of the reasons we wanted those, we have a set of primes here, Rokinon primes that we have here at the studio we use on a daily basis. We also have some Canon lenses, things like that. But this particular project, we needed something that had an incredibly cinematic and an incredibly sharp look. And the Zeiss CP2s really couldn't have been a better choice for what we were doing.
And for me, another great aspect of the Zeiss, two great aspects I want to speak on quickly. One, Zeiss is known for a very neutral look.
Even a little bit cooler.
Yeah, even a little bit cooler look. And when you're right out of the camera, sometimes that's not as preferable to something like a Canon Cine lens. It tends to be warmer, a little bit more contrasty. But where the Zeiss shines is when you get into post and you get into color grading. When you start when you take the footage to log and you really start working in log footage with those lenses, you have ultimate flexibility. It's really insane the level of detail that you can pull out from the Zeisses. And the other thing I'll say about Zeiss, this is not our first time using them. We were lucky enough to use them earlier in the summer on two projects: our July 4th video, which is out, and a music video, which is still yet to be released as of the time of this recording. But they were amazing on that as well. But the biggest part was their customer service. We spoke about Borrow Lenses, Zeiss as well. Again, not being paid, we're not affiliated with Zeiss, but they were one of the most helpful companies I've worked with. They gave us a shout out for one of the projects. They were incredible. So I feel like Zeiss has been a real partner in a lot of the work we've been doing here in the past few months because of their flexibility and their high quality products. And I'm very excited we were able to use them again on this one.
Yep. And we ended up, I was very proud of us. We rented 6 lenses and we used all 6, including the 18, which is a harder lens to use.
And we fell in love with the 18.
Oh my word, I want the 18 in my life.
You made this point, and I'm with you. Every time we use an 18, we go, why don't we do this more often?
Right. It's such a nice lens.
Well, because we're also used to when you're dealing with more inexpensive lenses that may be great. You get down to 18, you're going to have more distortion, you're going to have more problems on a lower quality lens. On that Zeiss, I mean, we have a shot where we're very close on some door frames, or on some window frames actually, and at the closest point, we can make out a little bit of distortion, but it's unbelievable how well corrected these lenses are. It was phenomenal.
Yep. So all that started going into pre-production. And we just started coordinating. We worked with the school. We started getting locations lined up. And that led us to our first day of production, which was Tuesday of this week.
We did have a couple of early, almost pre-pickup shots.
Yeah, we went out and with the drone. We got some aerials.
Got a couple of construction shots and things like that. But yeah, Tuesday kicked off principal photography.
Yep. Something to keep in mind as as you're listening to this, and you may be thinking, "Hey, I've got this project coming up where I'm going to have a bunch of locations." How did you schedule this out in a smart way? We sat down beforehand and we figured how much time it would take to shoot it, and then we added an hour to each location. I will tell you, in this particular production, we actually never fell behind.
No.
We never even used up that extra hour, so we ended up having quite a bit of time we were sitting on our hands.
Yeah.
But in production, you always need to assume things are going to go wrong, because they will.
Yes.
In fact, we had one location where we ended up, fortunately for us, it was the last location of the day, but we had an actor not show up for an hour after he was supposed to, and it was a principal actor. We couldn't move on without them. So consequently, with that, we were pushed an hour back, which, having the flexibility that we built in, made that a breeze. We were able to absorb it without any impact on the overall production.
One thing that didn't affect us on this shoot, it was just great timing, but that could have, was weather.
Oh, it's a miracle. We
were very, very lucky to not have weather issues, but the extra time that we had planned for would have made that much easier to deal with. Should we needed to, and also to that point as well, we planned originally for 10 days. 10 days that we would have the gear, and that we would have a window in which we could shoot. We didn't end up using nearly that. We really principally are using 4 days, but we had that extra time. We knew we'd have the gear. We were not running up against any deadlines, which allows us to calm down a little bit.
Yep.
Because there's nothing worse than when you start rushing, you're going to start making mistakes, and it's just a big rolling ball after that.
Yeah, and in this production, we were never rushing, which was a real blessing, really. To be able to methodically work through each location. We had about 2 setups per location. So to methodically think through them, get in, get our shots, get out, because really our largest time constraint was not our setup. It was going to be in the actors that we had and their availability for that time period. So being able to be efficient made it so that they could get on with their days.
Right.
I want to talk a little bit about the Ronin. We used the Ronin handheld gimbal system from DJI for probably about 80% of the shots in this piece. Part of the reason was we wanted to have a lot of fluidity. We wanted to have a lot of movement to keep this piece moving and dynamic, because it's not necessarily, like for instance, if you go to college, you'd see a lot of sports videos that are cut super fast. This is not that way at all. It's actually much slower. For a college piece, but it's designed that way. But the Ronin helped us then move through scenes pretty seamlessly. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about, because you're actually fresher with the Ronin. I've been using it for a long time. Talk to us a little bit about a first time experience using that tool and some things that you're observing from it cinematically.
Well, this is actually the first shoot that I have felt any level of, even the slightest level of beginning competency with it. This is one of our first shoots where I actually have a shot that I operated in the edit right now. We have a couple of other ones a couple other projects where I have some shots in it, but they're more simple. But this is the first one where I was able to start getting to a point where I could see a Ronin shot in my head and execute it. Because the first time I ever had the Ronin in my hands, it doesn't necessarily work the way my brain does. It's not intuitive for me right off the bat. I think you had the great saying the other day that the Ronin kind of hates you, and it kind of wants to make your life difficult at times. Even though it's a wonderful product, it's still at times it can feel like it's working against you until you master that learning curve. And so on this project, I mean, one of the things that we were really great on with this was using the Ronin as more than just a tracking gimbal system. We used it for a variety of shots. We actually executed a handoff shot. It's really the first one of those that we've done to this level.
Yeah, we went through a window.
Yeah, we went through a window and a handoff shot, which was fantastic. And that was a challenge because you're having to worry about 5 different things at the same time. You're having to worry about speed and height and the shot and weight and movement, and it's incredibly complicated. But that ended up working really, really well, and I feel good about where we landed with that. But we were able to use it for stuff like that. We were able to use it for shots that you might not even think are any sort of gimbal system. We were shooting out of your van, having you in the back of the van, on the side of the van.
Hanging off the top of the van.
Hanging off the top of the van. Hopefully our insurance company isn't listening to this. And we used it, I feel like we really used it effectively, and we didn't just use it as a toy. We didn't just use it as, well, every shot can be Ronin, so we should do it. There was a purpose for it at every step of the way. The biggest thing for me, and I was talking to you the other day, I want to get more experience with the Ronin because, I mean, frankly, we just haven't had a lot of time. I mean, since I've been here, we've had a lot of shoots, and there hasn't been a lot of downtime. And on a shoot is often not the best place to be learning a new piece of gear. So I want to take the Ronin. I think here in the next few weeks, I'm going to probably take the Ronin home with me on a weekend, really work out with it and learn about it, to kind of wrap my head around the way that it works, and also to you have to start building up the physical strength just to operate it, because it uses muscles that even if you're a strong guy, it uses different muscles. You're having to hold 40 pounds out and up, which is a very strange. We're not necessarily made to do that, so it takes a lot of training and muscle memory to operate that thing. So I mean, this shoot, and because of that, this shoot was a workout for all involved. I mean, just toting that thing around with us all week was quite a workout. But overall, I really felt like we used it well on the shoot. And we were able to find unique ways to use it that made sense. It wasn't just an extra piece of gear. It was a vital, vital tool. And that's something that overall, like you said about the lenses, I feel like we did well on this one, is we used everything to its maximum capabilities. There was nothing that was just superfluous or extra.
Right.
No, everything had a purpose.
Everything had a purpose, and everything was really important to making it happen. Whether it was the remote follow focus, setting up video villages.
Yep.
We
used Lightbridge, by the way. That's another one we should talk briefly about. Is the DJI Lightbridge system we used for pulling focus, connecting it to iPads and iPhones and stuff like that, and that was wonderful. That's a really, really great system.
Yeah. So, ultimately, at the end of the day, this project would not have happened without a lot of planning, because we crammed more into this week than you typically can.
Yeah.
So thanks to a lot of coordination by a lot of people here at the studio, a lot of people at the school, a lot of people sacrificing a lot of their time during the days to be available, we were able to coordinate a ton of schedules and make a lot of shooting happen.
Yeah.
Which is going to make this piece, I think, really stand apart.
Yeah.
Even in some of our work, I think this is going to be a cut above.
Yeah. I'm very happy with how how the shoot came out and how smoothly everything went. And just looking at the edit we have so far, I think it's a really good piece.
Brandon, how long do you think? And Brandon's off camera right now, and I'm going to be talking to him. How long do you think that we'll have a behind the scenes from this one?
It'll probably be. Hopefully it will coincide with the release of the video.
Okay, so we're probably looking at about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure that we tweet that out and we post it out.
And I think this is a good one for us to do an episode of the podcast where we do a commentary.
Mm-hmm.
You sit it, stop it, start it, run it back.
Yep.
Watch it with the viewers and just talk about all the different aspects, because there are. You and I were talking last night. There are some shots in it that, when we look at them, we go, oh, wow, this is an amazing shot. And then we realize how we got it and how simple it actually was. And we were having this conversation where this is a project that we're really proud of and that I think is a great piece of work. But anyone with the right tools and the right experience now could do the things that we do if they had the thought to do it. That's not something that's always been true in the world of production. And I think that's a really encouraging thing for someone listening to this who's maybe not at this point yet, but wants to be. And I'd love to cover that in the future and talk a little bit more about it.
Yep. So more on this project to come. We're excited to share it with you here coming up very soon. Feel free to follow us on Cliff's Twitter. He's at Cliff Baumgartner.
At Cliff Baumgartner.
Follow me on Instagram, Peter the Director. You can also follow the studio, AmazingStudiosinc.com, AMZG TV on YouTube.
There is a behind-the-scenes video of our Ronin handoff up right now.
Yeah, that's up on our Twitter page, isn't it?
Twitter and I believe Facebook.
Yeah, so follow us on Twitter, Amazing Studios 1, Facebook, Amazing Studios. A lot of great content coming out. We have a couple of exciting original concepts that will be coming out here in the next couple of months. I think Jeremiah is working on something pretty funny for Halloween.
Yeah.
So please follow along. We want to involve you guys and keep you guys up to speed, but ultimately we want to help to mentor and learn together as we're all striving to become better filmmakers. Until next time on the Production Podcast, I'm Peter Scheibner.
And I'm Cliff Baumgartner, reminding you to craft a story worth hearing.